I told you not to move.
Well, we go to episode 5. A curious fact about this episode is that I personally have problems with this one more than with chapter 4 on a personal level for one thing, but objectively, I think this is a better episode in general. In this one, I would like to know the personal opinion of the people, because I'm somewhat divided, but I will explain it at the end in my opinion. You already know how this goes. If you like it, do me a favor and share it so more people know about this series. And without further introduction, let's go with chapter 5 called Hope, or in Spanish called Hogar. The episode begins by showing us the content of the tape. It turns out that zombie drones are not that monstrosity that Uzi transforms into, but rather it is a phenomenon that occurs when a drone is not dismantled correctly, in which the drone resets despite having eliminated its hardware. After that, we see what appears to be a drone dome, in which we see that one of the drones is not deactivated completely, so it resets itself. Now we move on to a mansion that seems to be the one from N's memories, where we notice all the drones that are in the library are failing, including B, who's paralyzed, while N is next to her reading books. For some reason, not all drones were affected by what seems to be an error, and after Jay does a bakugo and tell the main character to do what we call in Latin America a cancerbero, this happened.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Yes! Finally a protagonist with a brain in a horror series / movies. After obviously not opening the clearly dangerous door to the basement, we move on to a scene where N goes to what appears to be a minibar, where this thing is.
You seem upset, big brother N. Perhaps you'd like to attend the gala with me. Light sip.
This seems to be Sin, the person B was talking about, and the robot we see at the beginning of the first episode. I mean the second one. It is clearly a zombie drone, since it does not work correctly and is extremely silly. After a discussion in which we see that Tessa's parents are not very enthusiastic about their daughter taking robots out of the trash can.
How you doing, kids?
And see blood dripping from the ceiling, Sin and N go with Tessa to see if they will be allowed to attend the gala that the family is organizing. After seeing that drones are really treated worse than slaves, we meet our human. Her name is Tessa James Elliott, and she's my favorite character. I love how she's a pretty loud girl, but at the same time she has no idea on how to interact with humans, and she and James seem to be really good friends, with seeing that she's the only person to which Jay does not act like an arrogant son of a... That started one of the most robophilic Yuri ships that for some reason exploded on Twitter.
Big fan.
We also see that Tessa seems to suffer some kind of abuse, and even though Jay is the one she spends the most time with, N is clearly her favorite, and no, I'm not going to add Tessa as a member of N's harem, who sees messages again in which they tell him that when he's about to die, scream Dark X Wolf 17.
Hey, Tessa.
And contrary to what one would think, Tessa really does not like Sin, from which we can understand that everyone hates Sin. We don't know about B, but she's probably not a fan of her. To which we see Tessa's mother believes that she let her robots in, even though she didn't, so his mother will throw his robots tomorrow into the trash can, or this threatens to do so. This ends in one of the best passive-aggressive threats I have seen in fiction.
They are not broken. We can no longer be thrown out.
But Anne blames himself for what she said.
He cries! I told her to say that and brought her here. I just hate orders. And it is this Boogiemen!
So they chain him outside of the mansion.
Ow! Portal, we were buddies! Dark X-Wolf 17?
Dude, you're made out of metal. Seriously? You're about to die from Cross? And by the way, drones aren't waterproof? Why doesn't the raid affect him? Well, I guess it's because it's a memory. Or is it?
Made the tag when I was 8. Shut up.
Okay, I don't blame you. See, the truth is my old username was Windingscaster Dark. But Uzi's here? But how? Well, people, I present to you the decision that I question the most in this chapter. It turns out that this is not a flashback, but that we're inside the memories of N and B, who were apparently at a sleepover when they passed out, as something is trying to erase their memories of the past that they have apparently been recovering, or at least N. So Uzi is hacking them to save their memories. Let's see, this is what I wanted to talk about, because subjectively I don't like it, but objectively I don't know if it is a bad thing. Let me explain. The point of this episode was to show us the past, which technically it does, but the main problem is that if it's interfering with N and B's memories, then we don't know what happened or not, and I hate that. I mean, what really happened? Did N open the basement door as soon as the knocking started? Which would make him look like a fool, because that door was clearly dangerous. Look, I'll talk about this more in depth at the end, because otherwise I give away spoilers, so let's move on. Okay, so Uzi's here now in the form of a crawl. Meanwhile, we see that Tessa's parents are competing with Khan and Pacifica's parents in Gravity Falls to see who is the worst parent, since they chained Tessa. Something that we could deduce since apparently she had injuries on her arms from what we saw before. Are the aliens a reference to the Northwest family? Anyway, Tessa asks Jay for help, but since she follows the orders of her bosses, I suppose that they are Tessa's parents, she doesn't help her and proceeds to threaten Sin, who tells her what for me is one of the best passive-aggressive phrases I have ever seen in my life.
You will not have to discard your pets, and I will not discard you. Best stay away from the gala, though. You seem squeamish.
How's that thing alive? I mean, it's a wooden doll, not a robot. Okay, back to CNN. For some reason, they have to go to the basement. You know, and maybe you don't want those memories. However, to get into the basement, they need the key that Jay has. However, let's say that B doesn't want to cooperate. Congratulations, you see, you're a mom now. Meanwhile, Jay frees Tessa, showing us that she voted for Javier Milei because she hates signatories.
Once paid time off to attend union negotiations.
¡Zurdos, hijos de puta, tiemblen! ¡Viva la libertad, carajo!
We see that Jay and Tessa prepare to go face Sin, who plans to massacre everyone at the gala. Right there, Uzi and Anne arrive, but something is stalking them. It's B, who is apparently in control by the solver and attacks the characters.
Coma patient you creeped on.
Not creepy, sweet!
After a fight for the key, Anne and Uzi arrive at the basement where after Sin kills the crow, Uzi takes control of Sin's body and we discover that Sin has taken advantage of all the time they lock her up to experiment with the drones. But just then, Doll appears.
Hey buddy, you invite Doll to this?
She wants to steal the robot cockroach from the previous chapter, so Uzi disconnects and Sin takes control again. And she prepares to kill Anne again, since apparently it's not the first time she does it. Later, we see how Tessa arrives at the room of the gala, but since she doesn't have a plan, in the end the only thing she managed to do is witness the massacre.
Tessa, remember, you didn't have to. You didn't have to.
What did you expect would happen? Now you're going to get traumatized or worse.
You stupid.
Meanwhile, in the present, Uzi decides to give Doll the cockroach, perfect to save Anne and B at the cost of getting answers. While all this was happening, Anne listens to the massacre that is happening upstairs, but Sin has trouble grabbing the tools.
Come on, solver of the absolute fabric, get a grip. Tantrum.
So she decides to let B in to help her, but let's say that it doesn't change things much.
Grab it. Just grab it. Grab it. Intimidating glare.
Why don't you use your other hand? You know what? I don't care, because thanks to that we have one of the most beautiful scenes in the series, in which in a very tender way Anne gives B her glasses back so she can do her job,
telling her not to worry because he got her.
I got you.
Then retrievers have
Gentle mouths.
In the face of such a tender and romantic act, V begins to recover her memory, but Sin interrupts before it gets clawing scenes like me that makes her vomit rainbows. And she proceeds to kill Anne, being saved just in time by Uzi, who returns and prevents Anne from losing his memories. Finally, we end up seeing how Doll is apparently working with Tess and Jay, but
Let's go.
and that's how the episode ends. Okay, I have quite a bit to say, however, instead of dividing my opinion between the good and the bad, in this case I will divide it into 3, because there's one thing that I don't know where to put it. I will leave it up for you if it's something good or bad. So let's start with the good.
¡Te cagué! ¡Tendrías que haberte visto la cara!
To start with the animation, well, it's always excellent. Everything from the lighting, the atmosphere and the music help to give you this feeling that you're genuinely in a haunted mansion, especially the music. It still maintains the classic Murder Drones theme, however, I love how it sounds like something that would be played in a high-class people's house. On the other hand, the characters,
Anne doesn't change.
you know that he likes dogs now, but that's it. However, he works very well as a protagonist of a horror movie / series, doing something that even in movies does not happen, and that is using common sense and acting like a normal person instead of an idiot. Obviously, when faced with paranormal events, he proceeds to ignore them and walk away, as anyone will do in his place. It seems like something basic, but I'm surprised by the number of movies that seem to forget that characters should act like people with common sense. The one who did receive development was the one I least expected. Jay, who was a comically evil antagonist figure, made for you to hate her. She's still bitch with Anne, but we also see a different side, a tender side that she only shows with Tessa. I know I made jokes and fun with your ship, but the truth is, I found it very interesting. I want to know more about Jay and her relationship with Tessa, since I did not expect that Jay of all the characters will be someone so loyal and nice, giving a new dimension to his hatred towards Anne. she's jealous of him of not being the favorite of Tessa. Speaking of the Australian, I love the character of Tessa. It's like Mabel, but she's actually cool. She's funny, she's entertaining, she's badass, she has a really good chemistry, not only with Jay, but with the rest of the cast. The exception will be V, but we'll get to that. And despite not having that much time either,
She quickly became my favorite character.
on the other hand, I think this episode is the one with the best humor. It genuinely has some of the best jokes of the series.
Crikey, what a bounding humpster ruffle!
Why are you talking like that?
And by the way, I love the presence of the Absolute Solver. I don't think Sin is the Absolute Solver per se. My theory is that the Absolute Solver works like a symbiote that can infect several people at once, where it corrupts the mind of its main host. In this case, Sin being the main host, like a parasite, if I had to put myself in MatPat mode, I would say that what happens is that the Solver has been inside Sin for so long that rather than infecting her, the personality of Sin and the Solver have been joining together, molding each other until they become almost indistinguishable from each other. Now the Solver has always had this touch of cosmic horror, however this is where it feels more like a creature inspired by Lovecraft stories, which I love. However, Sin is a very good villain. She has a disturbing aura that clearly shows something's not right with her, but she's also quite tender, funny, and for lack of a better word, silly. But besides that, the chapter has what for me is the most tender and beautiful moment of the entire series. I'm not getting to shipping, I'll talk about that when I talk about the series as a whole, but the scene of N and B in the basement is simply beautiful, showing that the best thing about this series is undoubtedly its characters. Oh, and I almost forgot, I really like Uzu's development. At first she could act like her edgelord version without fear of other people's opinions, but now that she accepted how embarrassingly in love she is with Anne, now she's more careful about what she says and how she responds. But at the same time, her edgelord side doesn't let her say what she feels, so she ends up acting like a tsundere, and it's honestly hilarious to me. Okay, this is what I wanted to talk about. The fact that it is not a flashback, as such, on the one hand is justified. They're erasing their memories. We have to intervene, and I recognize that is a good twist to the typical flashback episode, but it seems to me that it creates a huge problem. Something that we will see when I talk about the series as a whole is that sometimes by wanting to break stereotypes, the series gets into a worse hole. And I put it this way. What things of what we saw really happened, and what are the result of Uzu's intervention? On one hand, it pisses me off, since I want to see exactly what happened. We know that Sin massacred the people who went to the gala, but how exactly did it happen? Did Anne went into the basement when he heard the noises? That will invalidate the reason why I praise her performance in this chapter. Did he went with Sin to go ask Tessa for the keys, which triggered the scene in the gala room? If that was the case, how did Anne free himself from his change without Uzu's help? Is Dark X-Wolf 17 a real Crawl who freed Anne? In fact, how did he get the key in that timeline? And didn't take the blame to defend Sin when she made the comment? Well, that could be possible, but will be a bit out of character for him. Did Tess and Jay fight Solver B? If so, did Solver B win and kill Tess and Jay before they could get to the gala? You see what I mean? As all of this is modifying memories, in the episode that was supposed to show us what happened in the past, everything we saw may have been a waste of time because things could have happened completely differently. And knowing that there's only one more chapter left in the series, we may never know. Now let's get with what I do consider bad. Remember how I said that this episode has the best comedy-wise? Well, as a downside, I think it's the one that handles it the worst. The series knows very well how to balance horror and comedy, two very different genres, without ruining the atmosphere. However, I think this is not the case with this episode. I personally don't mind it, but I've seen people saying that some jokes ruin the atmosphere, and I can understand that. Although it doesn't seem that serious to me, there are two moments that I think break the tension.
Now the pacing,
This episode doesn't feel rushed really in telling a story. Rather, it seems like they skip telling you everything at all. I mean, I'm not just saying this because of the fidelity of what we saw. The best way to describe it is that
this episode feels like a movie in which you arrived late to the theater.
and the movie is already entering the third act climax. They just tell you that apparently the characters were at the sleepover and suddenly passed out, which could have been shown in a scene of just a few seconds. It could have even used that to make a joke, but no. As I said, it's like you arrived late to the theater. On the other hand, there's a character who's treated very badly in this episode, V. B had already been dragging problems since before. She had very little development and hasn't had time to shine. His only moment in which she generated interest was when she revealed that she knows more than she lets out. But be honest, has the series done anything interesting with that since it was revealed? Personally, I don't think so. But suddenly, we have a flashback episode which is supposed to tell us about the events of the mysterious mansion that we constantly see, where she and Anne live. This is going to be their episode. There's no other way. They're going to teach us about Anne and B's past.
We're going to see how she was before she had such a drastic change. Maybe show us what make her change.
Maybe we will even see her relationship with Anne and maybe also with Jay. It's just too much potential to make an interesting episode and for Anne and B to have development. There's no other way.
Well, not only it does not have any development,
But on top of that, it has no dialogues until the end of the episode. I know that we make fun of Jane for not having screen time, but B here had no dialogues almost the entire episode. That is disrespectful, knowing all the potential that there was. The same with Anne. Well, that will be all. It's something curious, don't you think? I enjoyed chapter 4 more than 5, despite technically being better. Well, I have 2 chapters left. I hope I don't lose my voice before I manage to finish this. I hope my babbling entertained you at least. And if you like it, share the video so more people know about the series. And we're going to one of the most traumatic ones for the fandom. Can you set me free? We'll see you there. Bye bye!